everyone, and welcome to the Pink Table Talk. How are you all doing today? I'm so glad that you're with me. My name is Laria Reed, and I am here to talk to you about topics for us by us ladies. And we want you to go ahead on, share, like this, let everyone know that we are here to talk about topics for women. Hope that you all are having an outstanding day. So we have got a great topic, and I can't wait to introduce our guests. Today we are talking about the journey of infertility. So make sure that you text your girlfriends, anyone who may be going through this journey as well, and let them know that we're on today. We've got two great guests that are able to talk to us about this subject. I mean, in the most, how should I say it, in the best way. So anyway, let me introduce our guests while you're doing that. Our first guest was born the daughter, only child, born the daughter of a Baptist preacher, and mother was a teacher. That is my life story as well. And her father was a Baptist preacher at that. She is the wife of an outstanding, her soulmate, Arthur. They've been married for 11 years. She graduated from Tuskegee University as a part of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. She's a human resources director, just an awesome person. Would you all please welcome Carla Mills? Hello, Carla.
Hello, Laria. Thank you for having me.
And our next guest, she is a daughter, sister, wife, and just an awesome friend. She graduated from Georgia Southern University. She is a native of Dublin, Georgia. Good old country girl. That's what I like to call her. She's married to her husband, Dwayne. They've been married 16 years. Just an awesome couple for the Lord. She is a high school counselor and assists in her local community in Warner Robins, Georgia. Would you all please welcome Miss Karen Strong?
Hello, everybody. Hey, Laria. Hey, Carla.
I am super duper glad to have both of you all on today for this topic, because I think it's a topic that's kind of taboo. We talk about it in and out, but we really never just come out and say, let's just go on and talk about this fertility thing. And I am so appreciative for the both of you guys coming on to talk to us about it. So my question is, and I was thinking about, and I kind of mentioned this to Carla, when you are single, everybody wants you to get married. Then when you get married, everybody wants you to start having kids. So it's like, then you start having kids. Well, how many kids you gonna have? You have too many, everybody's like, ooh, you having too many. Oh, you need to cut back. Oh, so it's always something. So my question for the two of you guys is, when you got married, and you all have been married over 10 years, both of you, 16 and 11 years, at what point did you start seeing that you were having some issues? Was it immediately? Did you already know that you might have some challenges? Or when you went to the doctor, did you find out and it's kind of been like, well, when is this going to happen? So what were your thoughts when you first found out, okay, I'm married and I'm not getting pregnant when I think I should be? So I'll start with you, Carla.
That's a great question, Lorraine. I think when we first got married, we were in that phase of, we're not trying, but we're okay if it happens, right? Mm-hmm. And, year one goes by, totally okay. We're fine. We're traveling, we're doing our thing. Then we see year two, then we see year three. And, then I'm coming up on my 35th birthday. So I say, well, let me just go and check. They say everything starts to go downhill at 35. Mm-hmm. You start to think about, family issues where no one readily had any trouble necessarily getting pregnant that I was aware of, but that's another thing that we don't talk about, even in our families. But really for me, it was that turning point. Okay, I'm getting 35. I'm turning 35. I know people who've had children after 35, but let me just see what's going on. And that was when I started to talk to my OBGYN at the time, who was very insightful and said, Carla, there are some things that I can do, but let's not waste time here. And that's when she sent me to a fertility specialist or a reproductive endocrinologist. And that's when we started going through that process of, let's run tests, let's determine what's going on, let's kind of rule out some things. And that's when we started to really dig into what was going on and what was happening.
Yeah, that's good. And what about you, Karen? Appreciate that.
My story is similar to Carla's as well. Pretty much the same exact thing. When we first got married, we just thought we were going to have kids. We didn't plan it out. We didn't say, well, we're going to wait 5 years, we're going to wait 3 years. We just decided whenever it happens, then that's when we'll have kids. So after about year 3, it didn't happen, and we were actively trying, but nothing was happening. So of course, I went to the doctor, which then leads you to a fertility specialist, and then that's when we got the diagnosis that I was going to have problems being able to conceive.
Gotcha. Okay. And I know both of you all are believers, and we know the power of God and all those great things. So my question is too, because a lot of women who are watching, we're believing the Lord and asking him to do things, and he may not have come through yet for us. So how do you keep your spirits up and the discouragement that comes along with that? How do you navigate through, the letdown, like, oh, I'm not pregnant yet? Okay, well, let's try this. Oh, that hadn't worked yet. So how do you stay and keep your spirits up, believing God for what you're praying for?
I'll go. For me, I'm just gonna be very honest. When I first got the diagnosis, it was devastation. I remember crying so when you have those cries that you can't catch your breath. I remember crying so hard. And my husband was like, it's gonna be okay. It's okay. It's okay. Like, if we don't have kids, it's okay. And I remember starting to hear testimonies of people who had trouble having kids, and God blessed them later with children. And that's what helped me to know that if God could do it for them, then he's the same God. If it was in his will, he would do it for me as well. And that's really what kept me going, just trusting God to know that even if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean it's because he can't. It just means that he just has another plan for my life.
Right. I like that. I love that. Carla, what about you?
Again, everything Karen said, and it's not easy. It is just not easy, even when you know that God can do exceeding abundantly above anything that you ask or can think. When you hear the testimonies and you see the other people, it's still not easy. It's still, okay, Lord, I'm happy for them. And sometimes maybe even I'm not, but okay, but I'm trusting and believing on you. And again, very similar to Karen, I remember being in the fertility doctor's office when they told me, after we'd done all of these workups, like, well, Carla, you're gonna have to go to IVF if you ever want to get pregnant. And I'm like, well, wait, we talked about all of these other things that we could try first that were just kind of wiped away in an instant. But one of the things that really and truly has helped me more than anything was finding a community of Black women that were going through the same thing. And I am part of now an amazing support group called the Daughters of Hannah. And oddly enough, a friend of my husband's asked that question that most people ask, oh, do you and Carla have kids? And he gave that form answer that people along this journey will hear. Whenever God is ready, not yet. And she probed a little bit and really shared with him. And so having a community of Black women that are going through the same thing that I am has made it easier for me to talk about it and has been a tremendous amount of support.
Wow. And that was my next question, was how do you all find support? So Carla, you already talked about support. So Karen, how do you find support with all of everything that's going on with trying to conceive?
Well, with me, it has actually been helpful because I've actually been able to talk to other women who have been in the same situation. I know how that feels when you go to the doctor and you hear that news, and me being able to just encourage them, you will get through this. Like, this is not the end. This is not all that God has planned for you. He has other plans for you. And even then, and just because you got this word, that's not the final word. You still have to keep trusting and believing in him. So that's really what helps. That's really what helps me, because I don't have anyone in my family that, has went through anything like this. So, I know I felt really alone in the beginning, but I knew I had to just, I mean, it's not something you can hide because people are going to ask
Right.
the question. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to talk about it. So
Right.
that's what keeps me going, and that's what helps me.
You guys are all up in my questions because that was my next question. I wanted to find out, how do you deal with people coming up to you asking you, when are you gonna have some kids? What y'all waiting on? And people, we can be so insensitive of others, and that's just across the board. We need to stop doing that as people. So if you're listening and watching, stop asking people when they're gonna do something, because everybody is we can't do everything we want whenever we want to, at some point. So my question to you all is, how do you navigate through people asking you questions and the pressures of others? And I'll start with you, Carla.
Loria, that is a great question. And I know we kind of talked about that before. And the first thing I will say is that with infertility, unlike any other or most other, let me say, uh, situations or
Mm,
diagnosis, I guess I would say, you can't see it. You can see, the woman that is pregnant, but you can't see the woman that is on the fertility journey. And to your point of just thinking to the next step of what you say, of being very sensitive to the woman that doesn't have children, it may totally not be because she doesn't want to. And there may be some women that don't want children, and that is also their choice. And I think for me, what has really helped, again, in being in a support group, it's helped me to talk more openly and really just taking that as a teachable moment for
mhm.
people to share that having children has not been easy for me. That's why we don't have them, and
Right.
that we are certainly trying, and that it's a tough question. So think twice before you ask it, and pray for us that, be it God's will, we will also see that gift that you want for us so tremendously.
So bad, right?
Right.
Exactly. Karen, what about you? What do you say when people, when you gonna get some buns in the oven?
So the two questions that you always get are what and why. What are you waiting on? When are you going to have kids? Or why don't you have any kids? And a lot of it is people just don't know. Because, I've been guilty probably in my younger years of asking some of my single friends, why don't you want to get married? Or, things such as that. And the thing about it and I always tell people the same thing. Whenever God decides to bless us with kids, that's when we will
That's
have them. And the thing about it is that a lot of people just assume that everybody can easily conceive, and that is just not the case. A lot of cases of infertility actually are unknown. There is no reason, no medical reason that doctors can even find of why some people cannot conceive. That's the diagnosis they get, is it's just unknown. So the thing about it is, I think, navigating those questions, you do have to give a response. And a lot of times when you say that to people, they kind of back off a little bit. But I think people should always think even before they ask the question.
that's
And
right.
if the person says we don't have any kids, then that doesn't mean that you continue to probe and say, well, why don't you have any? Or when are you gonna have, don't continue to probe. It's okay to say, hey, do you have any kids? But you don't have to continue with the litany of questions afterwards.
Right.
Because a lot of
Right.
people are not in a space where they're even comfortable. I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but a lot of people, especially when it's new, you're really not in a mental space to be able to have those conversations with people.
Mhm. Mm. And I wanted to talk to you briefly about has there been a grieving process? I know sometimes we can get mad at our husbands or at God or everybody because it's like, why won't you do this for me? What's going on? Did you all ever experience anger? And I think that that's one of the things that we don't talk about especially when we're saved. You all are so involved in your church and you love the Lord, and it's like, well, what's going on? Why won't you do this? So, did either one of you experience anger during this process?
I did. And I will
Hmm.
say, but I didn't realize it at first. And it was after, again, being a part of the Daughters of Hannah. We have some great resources that will come in, but a Black therapist came in once and talked to us about therapy along the journey. And I will just say, I'm so glad to see that the stigma around therapy is beginning to fall away in our community, because it's so needed and so helpful. But I
Mhm.
started to see a therapist that specialized in couples and women who were on this infertility journey. And I remember
Mm.
telling her, I wish God would tell me what he wanted to do so I could get on with it. And I just, said
Right.
this in the middle of a few tears and some tissues, but not really thinking anything of it. And she stopped me and she said, Carla, how do you deal with anger? And anybody that knows me would not describe me as an angry person, pretty happy go lucky, pretty even keeled, easy to get along with. So it made me think. And I realized that because on its surface, I'm like, you never get mad at God. God has a good and perfect will. I've grown up in church all my life. What God has for me is for me. But when I really
Mhm.
dug into that, I wasn't really talking to God like I normally would. I wasn't telling God how I really felt and what I really wanted, and to increase my faith in my territory. And it took me back. But I realized I was angry at God at a very, deep place that I didn't realize, but I was. But realizing that helped me and continues to help me navigate my relationship with God about this very thing. Because if I tell others that there is nothing too hard for God, I have to put that into practice in this
Right.
and along this journey as well.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Karen, what about you with anger? Ever been angry at God about
Yes,
this situation?
yes, I agree with everything that Carla just said. Anger and disappointment, because you feel
Mm.
like that I'm trying to live the right way. I'm trying to do things the right way. I'm and this is that one thing, God, that one thing that I'm asking you for daily, and then it doesn't happen. And just like Carla said, you just wanna know, okay, do you want this? Is this what you want from me? And it's like, if you go ahead and tell me, maybe I can just move on and stop thinking about it. But God
Mhm.
doesn't work on our timetable.
He
So,
doesn't.
having said that, I think about Paul. He had a thorn in his flesh, but he said that because God's grace is sufficient. And this is like a thorn in the flesh, because you can think you're doing okay, and then it comes back up again. But his grace is sufficient. His grace is
Yes.
sufficient. And this is one of those things that we may never know the answer to this question until we get to heaven. And then it probably won't even matter at all then. So I think that, just being honest with God about where you are. If you are angry, it's okay to tell him you're angry and you're hurt, because he knows anyway. We can try to put on a facade like it's okay, but God already know. He knows our heart. He's the one person that knows everything about us. So it
Yes,
is
ma'am.
okay to have those emotions of disappointment, of anger. It's normal, because that is part of the grieving process.
Right, right. Um, and just to wrap things up, I want you guys to give a word of encouragement to a woman who may be watching in the same situation as you, or someone who may be going through a time of trusting God or not understanding what's happening. If you just want to speak a kind word to them, because I won't say that you all have just overcome, but you all are in a good place. And I know it takes time and work to get to where you are now. So I'll start with you, Carla. Just a word of encouragement to a woman who's going through what you are too.
You know what I would say is, it's okay and you've got
Mhm.
this. Whatever
Mhm.
emotion you're feeling, wherever you are on the journey, whatever process you are in, it is okay. And you are not alone. There are women that look like you. There are women that have been along this journey. There are women that have been on this journey a long time. There are women
Mhm.
that are going through this journey and that will grow and will make it through this journey because of you. So know you're not alone. Know that even when it feels like it, God has not forgotten about you. And that even when you cannot and feel like you cannot support yourself, not only does God and the Holy Spirit and his infinite wisdom have you, but there are women that you may never know that are out here praying for you, that are rooting for you, and that are ready to hold you up when you can't do it for yourself. So you got this, and it's going to be okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Karen, what about you?
I just want to tell any lady that's going through any issue of any fertility issue that God has not forgotten about you. You are loved, you are valued, and you have purpose. Just because you have not conceived yet, it is still not impossible, because there is nothing that's impossible with God. There are so many biblical examples in the Bible of women, and the Bible clearly states that they were barren. And the Bible says that God makes the barren woman a happy mother of children. And it is his will for us to have kids. It is. It is his will. And we have to stand in his will. But sometimes, because we live in a fallen world, it does not always happen that way. But we still have to trust and still keep believing. He did it for Sarah. I know nobody wants to hear that. I know Sarah was in the 90s when it happened. But he did it for Sarah. It's never too late. You just have to keep your eyes on Jesus, because he will act. He will. I know this sounds real cliche-ish, but I'm telling you what I know to be true. He will make it all right. He will make it all right. You just have to keep your faith in him, and you have to just keep holding on to what his word says.
Amen. That was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you both so much for coming on today to share your story. I wish we had more time, but this was so good and so rich. Thank you both for being here. Carla Mills, Karen Strong, the journey of infertility. Y'all, we'll have to come back and do this again and talk some more about some more workings of everything. But I pray that both of you all receive the desires of your heart and that you continue to move on in the ways of the Lord, because you all are just such great women.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and thank you so much for watching the Pink Table Talk, and we'll see you the next time. Have a good one.